Welcome to our special on mental health. I'm Paula Eben. For the next half hour, we'll explore the crisis that has impacted our children and young adults and the efforts to raise awareness. We'll also celebrate the individuals and organizations that are helping families find help and hope. We begin in Brockton, where WBZ's Louisa Moeller found tireless providers who are managing the health and mental health of dozens of new immigrants every week.
Say one, two, buckle my suit.
This doctor can't help but play with little Rayanatu Jayo.
It's okay, it's okay.
But she also has a close eye on the baby girl from the African country of Guinea-Bissau, because baby and mom are two of the dozens of new immigrant faces walking into the Brockton Neighborhood Health Center every day, some of them with complex mental health issues.
Certainly patients who have come through the southern border have had a lot of trauma. There's violence, some kids are abused astronomically. We see about 20 to 25 new patients a day.
Lead pediatrician Dr. Jane Marie Dolan says every single patient is evaluated by the center's behavioral health team.
Some kids have anxiety, some kids have post-traumatic stress disorder and do need counseling and therapy. So we screen all our patients for these disorders.
The first concern that I had was my little daughter, my 2-year-old daughter, because I thought that she might have some development issue.
That's how Haitian immigrant Emanuela learned that her toddler Elsie was autistic.
The doctor and the center is very supportive.
These healthcare professionals are now meeting the needs of two vulnerable groups: the influx of immigrant patients and the kids who lived in Brockton through the pandemic, who are dealing with their own trauma.
The kids were home for over a year, so they weren't in school. So there was a really high rate of depression and anxiety, and we're still dealing with that now.
And according to a 2020 survey of Brockton Public School guidance counselors, 39% indicated they were aware of a child intentionally hurting themselves. 36% were aware of a child who contemplated suicide in the 12 months prior. But even as they are bursting at the seams, the health center is not backing down from a challenge. These flags in the grass marking the spot where a brand new health clinic will open next to Brockton High School next year.
So kids who haven't been connected with care can come over and have physicals done, get vaccinated, be seen for acute problems, and also for behavioral health problems.
The kind of good care that crosses culture barriers.
Why did you want to bring your baby girl here to get a checkup?
Because all of my family brings the babies here, and this is a good place to take care of the babies.
In Brockton, Louisa Moeller, WBZ News.
One of the biggest challenges surrounding mental health and wellness is having the courage to talk about it. A group of students in Taunton wanted to break the stigma and decided to speak publicly about it, and that could spark their own healing while helping others at the same time. Lost in thought of the color and each brushstroke. The careful work needed to create watercolor pieces like this Greek temple helps Caitlin Lincoln manage her anxiety.
I find that it's a really cathartic experience for me to have that time alone with myself without any distractions.
Like countless other teens, this Taunton High School senior struggled over the past couple of years with mental health.
After the pandemic, everyone's anxiety, especially mine, was really heightened.
Centers for Disease Control data in 2021 show 37% of high school students reported poor mental health during the pandemic, and 44% said they often felt sad or hopeless.
The pandemic really hit that age group hard. Adolescence is really a time of getting away from your parents and making lots of social connections, and that was curtailed for adolescents.
Caitlin and classmate Charlotte Post thought sharing their experiences might help their classmates and decided that their high school club Taunton High TED Talks was the perfect way to do it.
So we chose mental health because the three of us that were in the club last year had our own struggles with mental health.
They spent months researching, writing, and preparing their talks.
It's honestly just practice.
They presented their experiences, struggles, and advice to a lecture hall full of classmates and teachers.
Never forget that you matter.
Charlotte and a student who graduated last year talked about self-care and checking in with others, while Caitlin shared strategies that worked for her, including exercise, putting her feelings down on paper in daily journal entries, and her artwork.
It can produce something of beauty in times of darkness and give you hope.
Both students say producing the talk helped them realize there is not one definition of mental health.
It can look different for every single person, no matter what, if they're diagnosed with a disorder or not.
Caitlin and Charlotte are currently working on a new TED Talk for this year, and they may choose a related topic about the music industry and how it impacts the self-image of teens. There are several outlets for those seeking help about anxiety, depression, or mental health. One is the Crisis Text Line. It's a nonprofit that offers free 24/7 mental health support. Anyone can text, and within minutes, a counselor will respond to those in need. In fact, just last year, more than 25,000 Massachusetts residents used the text line to reach out for help. The text line is available to people of all ages, but the folks behind the text line say the vast majority of those who reach out are Gen Z or 25 years old or younger.
Every texter is risk assessed. So if someone texts in saying, I'm in crisis because of my homework, our volunteers are trained in a clear and kind and empathetic way to ensure that they are able to ask every texter whether in the background of their mind they're considering suicide. So we don't want to miss that.
The volunteers at the Crisis Line will help the texter find help. To use the Crisis Text Line, just text HELLO to 741-741, and a crisis counselor will text back within 5 minutes to help. A new national suicide prevention hotline went live this summer, and it's now available for anyone who needs emergency mental health assistance. You simply dial 988 to speak with a trained crisis counselor. This is the first time in decades a new 3-digit line has been created nationwide. The system aims to reduce the risk of injury or death for someone experiencing a mental health crisis. The hotline will consist of previously existing call centers from around the country, including the Samaritans right here in Massachusetts. People of color face challenges unique to their communities when it comes to mental health. WBZ's Courtney Cole shows us 2 organizations working to meet the growing demand for resources for teens.
This may just look and sound like a room full of teenagers talking to one another. But for the teens that gather here, the Center for Teen Empowerment is a space for healing.
Before I got here, I was mentally, I was far away. I was low, you know what I'm saying?
Vondell Martinez said he was in a depressive rut during COVID when he first learned about the Center for Teen Empowerment.
It definitely stumped a lot of my ambitions, a lot of my goals. I didn't want to do anything.
It's not just the conversation that keeps them coming back.
They do music, they do dance, they do photography, they do everything art-based to help the community. And I was like, yo, I need to be here.
The Center for Teen Empowerment uses art therapeutically, helping teens work through their challenges and traumas to become the best version of themselves.
I feel like in a way it's given me a purpose more than I had before. I feel like it's definitely positively impacted my mental health.
Just the fact that this community is so positive and uplifting, and it breaks those generational cycles we've encountered for a long time.
Cycles that existed even before the pandemic began, discouraging communities of color from seeking mental health help. The The Boys and Girls Clubs of Boston is another organization that works every day to break those cycles.
There's always been a demand for mental health services, and the pandemic just magnified the issues around mental health.
According to a study published last year by JAMA Pediatrics, children of color living in communities with higher rates of poverty and crime deal with unique mental health challenges.
When you don't know where your next meal is coming from, struggling to purchase clothing, struggling to have safe, affordable housing, you are in effect telling a young person that perhaps they don't matter.
Kevin Barton is the executive director of Youth Connect, a Boys and Girls Club program that places licensed social workers in Boston police stations.
When we pick up that phone and call them after a referral has been made by a police officer, over 90% who came in having mental health concerns as something they noted as a top concern, about over 50% have made progress. That tells us something. This works.
Now, Barton says it's time for investment to match the demand, so young people in need aren't left to fend for their mental health themselves.
We're not in the business of throwing anyone away. And so every young person needs to know that they have a second, third, and fourth chance.
A chance to be seen, to be heard, and to know that they matter. In Boston, I'm Courtney Cole for WBZ News.
Fears over the planet's future. We talked to teens about anxiety brought on by climate change and how being together in the outdoors can help ease some of that worry. And eye-opening new research on the mental health of college students, the new book, and what it uncovers about the stresses and concerns for collegians.
World Mental Health Day is brought to you by InStride Health for youth ages 7 to 22 with moderate to severe anxiety and OCD.
Well, now more than ever, climate change is top of mind, and news about our constantly transforming planet is giving young people anxiety about the future. But as Brianna Pitts shows us, teenagers we spoke with found that there is mental strength in numbers and action.
These are our oldest trees right here, these maples.
A forest escape.
Got some turkeys over here.
Twice a week, a group of teenagers meet here at Mass Audubon's Boston Nature Center in Mattapan to embrace nature, discuss climate change, and figure out how they can help.
My biggest fear, I think, is not necessarily that it's going to happen, but more just that we aren't going to try and at least stop it from happening.
Extreme drought, intense rain, tornadoes, wildfires. Uncertainty over the planet's future is creating a generation filled with anxiety about what lies ahead.
Sea levels rising, people won't have places to live. It just affects so much.
According to a recent Hickman Global Youth Survey, many teenagers around the world have a very grim outlook on the future. Nearly 40% were hesitant to have children. More than 3/4 of those surveyed say the future is frightening, and more than 80% believe people have failed to take care of the planet. Psychologists say the road to adulthood is now filled with potholes.
In adolescence and thinking about, what do I want to be when I grow up? What do I want my life to look like? A lot of adolescents are thinking, I don't know whether there will be a future.
And Sarah Schwartz of Suffolk University says the situation gets even worse when teens feel helpless to do anything about it.
This combination of not just saying, yes, climate change is real and this is scary, but feeling like, and no one's doing anything about it, I think that leads to much more of the sense of fear and powerlessness.
But teens we spoke to are ready to take action.
I think just even starting the conversation of oh, this is going on, what are we gonna do, is a way to help cope, because I'm not the only one going through these fears.
You can tell by the kind of the lobe shape. That's garlic mustard. Should be okay.
Stephen Lynn is a teacher and a naturalist who works at Mass Audubon and with Boston schools. Lynn says the hope lies in the faces he sees every day.
Young people have something that we don't have. They have a lot more creativity, and a lot more empathy, and that's why the young folks are so important. Oh, there it is, yeah.
And this 67-acre sanctuary may be the key to inspiring and freeing those minds.
Well, this place is thriving. This place is surviving in the middle of all this, you know, craziness. So, who knows? Maybe there's hope for the rest of the world there too.
And Professor Schwartz says having these teenagers meeting together is exactly what they need. Activism and validation of their fears by parents can go a long way to ease climate anxiety. Brianna Pitts, WBZ News.
Even before the pandemic exposed the depths of the mental health crisis, 2 Harvard University researchers discovered its effect on college students. Wendy Fishman, Howard Gardner, and their team interviewed 1,000 students at 10 schools across the country. In their book, The Real World of College, What Higher Education Is and What It Can Be, they spell out their findings. Almost half of the students were going to college for the sole purpose of getting a job. In other words, not to learn, but to earn, which the researchers found leads to a lot of pressure, stress, and anxiety. The #1 concern for students on campus across the board was mental health.
They have this preoccupation that they need to do well, they need to build the perfect profile, and they need to get the job as a result of going to college. And this is what students said kept them up at night, this overwhelming stress to get A's and to graduate with this perfect resume. And sadly, we know that this begins in high school and at early ages. So even though we saw this with college students in terms of them describing it to us, we know that students in high school are put on a treadmill to only think about achievement, building this resume to get into college.
So what can we do? Wendy Fishman says adults need to understand the problem. She says we can help kids by easing up on the pressure to perform that starts at a young age. We can work with educators about the messages we're sending young people about why school is important, and stress that it's not just about grades, scores, and clubs. Using a comfort canine to treat troubled minds. The city in New Hampshire using man's best friend to raise spirits and increase mental health among young people. It's estimated that at least 20% of police calls are related to a mental health crisis. In one New Hampshire city, the police are tackling this issue with a lovable pup. As WBZ's Louisa Moeller reports, Franklin PD are crediting Canine Miller with saving young lives.
Go get her, go get her, go get her, go get her.
Police Canine Miller has it good at Franklin, New Hampshire Middle School. His own water bowl.
Loved the calf, so he would like peruse the floor and eat all the kids' scraps during lunch.
A whole lot of back rubs. And his own cheering squad. But it's not all fun and games for Miller. This purveyor of pats has a power.
They're actually saving lives. They're making it easier for people to communicate when they need to, making it easier for people to get services when they need them.
Miller is the Franklin Police Department's specially trained comfort dog, the second in the state of New Hampshire.
Ready to go to work?
And alongside his partner, Officer Kristen Tracy, he uses his gentle presence to soothe people in their darkest moments.
We had a juvenile try and commit suicide by jumping out of a second-story window, and we met her at the hospital and she was just completely catatonic. And I brought him into the ER room and she just completely opened up. He put his paws up on her.
He comforts officers who've been through trauma, calms victims of serious crimes, attends calls in his own patrol car. And of course, he snoops around school.
His personality is great. He's just really goofy. He's really funny.
And the power of Miller has never been needed more than now, on the heels of the pandemic. Officer Tracy says she's experienced a roughly 50% increase in police calls. Months of social isolation, especially tough on children. We saw with this child who was sitting alone at school, somehow Miller draws them out.
If I'm having like a bad day or something, it's just nice to come and visit Canine Miller.
Marie Junta knows about loneliness. Her rare illness kept her home during COVID, but she came out to visit this face.
He would sit near me and make me feel better. Someone once told me one time, when God made dogs, that he turned his name around and it was dog.
In Franklin, New Hampshire, Louisa Moeller, WBZ News.
A group of middle school students in Plymouth is on a mission to remove the stigma surrounding the topic of mental health. They created a Hope Garden on the grounds of their school, part of the Yellow Tulip Project. That's a national organization that plants the flowers to spread hope and awareness about mental health. And that was just the beginning. They painted yellow rocks and also created tulip hope trees. The idea is to get people talking, because you can never tell who is struggling just by looking at them.
Something that we say is to smash the stigma, and I think that's good, because I think that people should be able to talk about it, because part of being able to cope with it is being able to talk about it.
I think it helps the community to see bright flowers, because it makes everybody happy and knows that there is really hope in the world.
Even the slightest thing can make a big impact on someone's life.
These students are expanding their tulip project to the public library, planting 500 bulbs that will bloom sometime in mid-April. Today's program, diving into the many mental health issues facing our young people, was made possible by a sponsorship from a local company called InStride Health. Founded by two mental health professionals from McLean Hospital in Belmont, it uses a different model to help young people struggling with anxiety and OCD. Here's Leah Martin with more on how it works.
At 13, Evan Finnemore knows 2 computer code languages and understands exactly how this robot works. But simply moving the buttons on the controller takes incredible effort. He has OCD, and touching basic items can create intense levels of anxiety.
When people touch me at school, it's really anxiety provoking. It makes it really hard to just walk around and share materials.
A year ago, it got so bad, Evan couldn't go to school at all.
His anxiety just went through the roof, and he ended up being suicidal and hospitalized at Children's for 8 days.
It was terrifying for all of us, because we had no way to address it, to stop it, to control it.
Eventually, Evan's parents found InStride Health, a company that uses a team approach to help kids like Evan.
They basically saved our lives.
InStride was founded by psychiatrist Dr. Mona Potter and psychologist Catherine Boger. The former McLean Hospital providers came up with a unique treatment model that uses virtual therapy, but also includes a coach that kids can literally take with them anywhere.
And it's sort of like the kid has a champion.
I get texts from my coaches on my watch.
Our coaches actually follow kids virtually out into the community. Kids have their portable devices. They're going into stores, doing exposures. They're around the community using their skills with their therapist, with their coach, supporting them in real time.
The coaches are available to kids like Evan around the clock, and they provide valuable information to their doctors.
I'm being asked to potentially medicate a developing brain, which is not a small thing. Having a coach and a therapist in such close contact is incredibly helpful.
Evan is learning to manage his OCD and is back at school.
I feel very happy this year that I can go.
There's hope that he'll move on and do what normal kids do, which is what he's doing now. And he was not doing that last year. It allows us to have a hopeful, normal family life.
Well, InStride currently specializes in anxiety and OCD, but many of these kids also have depression and other mental health challenges. The InStride teams can help with those issues as well. We have more information posted at cbsboston.com. I'm Leah Martin, WBZ News.
Thank you for joining us for this World Mental Health Special. If you are struggling or know someone who may be struggling, please seek help immediately. We have a full list of resources to help on our website, cbsboston.com. Take care and be well.